Rachel Martinez stood frozen in Times Square, her morning coffee forgotten in her trembling hand. Above her, the sky had transformed into a vast canvas of light, displaying beings that defied human comprehension. The massive hologram stretched from horizon to horizon, showing entities that seemed to be made of crystalline light and flowing energy. The morning had started normally enough. New York's usual cacophony of honking horns and bustling crowds filled the air as millions began their daily routines. Then, at precisely 9:17 a.m. Eastern Time on Tuesday, October 12, 2157, every screen on Earth went dark. Phones, computers, billboards, all displayed the same message: stand by for universal broadcast. Now the beings that called themselves the Cosmic Assembly commanded humanity's undivided attention. Their voices resonated not through the air, but directly in the minds of every human on Earth, speaking in each person's native language simultaneously. Citizens of Earth, the collective consciousness of the Assembly began, their thoughts carrying undertones of both ancient wisdom and cold calculation. We have observed your species for 3 centuries. We have watched your wars, your technological advancement, and your first tentative steps into space. Today, we deliver our judgment. Rachel noticed a businessman beside her sink to his knees, overwhelmed by the psychic weight of the Assembly's presence. Around the square, thousands stood transfixed, their breath visible in the unusually cold October morning. The temperature had dropped 10 degrees since the broadcast began. Humanity represents an anomaly in galactic civilization. The Assembly continued. Your species advances too rapidly, adapts too readily, and demonstrates concerning levels of unpredictability. Standard models cannot forecast your development with acceptable accuracy. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Rachel's journalist instincts kicked in, and she pulled out her notebook, her hands steadying as she focused on documenting this historic moment. The coffee cup lay forgotten at her feet. The Cosmic Assembly maintains order across 17 galactic arms. We shepherd the development of sentient species, ensuring peaceful integration into the greater community. However, your species, here, the crystalline beings shifted, their forms suggesting what might have been disappointment or concern. Your species demonstrates variance beyond acceptable parameters. High above Manhattan, one of the beings moved forward, its form dwarfing the Empire State Building. Its voice carried a different tone, almost resembling sympathy. We offer you a choice, born of both concern and mercy. Humanity may accept permanent quarantine within your solar system, maintaining autonomy within these bounds. Or, the temperature dropped another 5 degrees. Frost began forming on windows. Or face immediate extinction. The crowd's silence broke. Screams erupted from some corners of the square, while others stood in stunned disbelief. Rachel's pen moved frantically across her notebook, even as tears froze on her cheeks. You have 30 days to reach consensus, the Assembly pronounced. We recognize your democratic systems require time for discussion. Be aware that any attempt to evacuate your solar system will be considered an act of rejection, triggering immediate extinction protocols. The largest entity moved closer, its form rippling with colors beyond human comprehension. This judgment is final and unanimous. The Assembly has spoken. Its next words carve themselves into humanity's collective memory. We shall return on November 11th, 2157, at this same moment. Choose wisely. The holograms vanished as suddenly as they had appeared. The sky returned to its normal blue, though the unnatural cold lingered. In Times Square, as across the globe, the silence of shock gave way to the chaos of terror. Rachel looked down at her notebook, her journalist's training fighting through her fear. She had documented humanity's most crucial moment, but one detail stood out. Just before the transmission ended, her enhanced hearing implant had picked up something the Assembly hadn't meant to broadcast: a whispered conversation between 2 entities. They must not be allowed to realize their true potential. The quarantine will contain them until a permanent solution is found. As emergency sirens began to wail across Manhattan, Rachel clutched her notebook tighter. The assembly hadn't just judged humanity. They feared it, and she intended to find out why. Dr. Amanda Sullivan hadn't left her MIT laboratory in 3 days. Empty coffee cups littered her desk, and holographic displays filled the air around her with cascading data streams. While the world's governments argued about the assembly's ultimatum, she obsessed over something nobody else had noticed: the quantum resonance patterns in the alien's transmission. "Run it again, Core," she commanded her quantum computer. The machine hummed, processing the recorded energy signatures from the assembly's broadcast. Her eyes burned from lack of sleep, but she couldn't stop. Not when she was this close. The laboratory door hissed open. Dr. Sullivan, her research assistant, Marcus Webb, entered carrying fresh coffee. "The dean's asking if you'll join the emergency faculty meeting." "Look at this, Marcus." She gestured to the central hologram, ignoring his question. The assembly's transmission wasn't just communication. It was radiating some kind of fundamental force, something we've never detected before. Marcus set down the coffee and studied the display. "That's impossible. We've mapped all the fundamental forces. We thought we had." Amanda manipulated the hologram, expanding a particular wavelength pattern. "But their technology operates on principles that defy our current understanding of physics. It's like they've tapped into the fabric of consciousness itself." Her fingers flew over the controls, overlaying human brainwave patterns onto the assembly's energy signature. The correlation made her breath catch. Every human on Earth heard their message in their native language simultaneously. They weren't broadcasting sound. They were interfacing directly with our consciousness. Marcus leaned closer, his eyes widening. "But that would mean their power comes from manipulating this unknown force that connects mind and matter." Amanda pulled up another display showing human neural patterns. "And here's the thing that's keeping me awake. Human brains naturally generate similar wavelengths during moments of intense emotion or concentration. We've been dismissing these patterns as background noise for years." She brought up archived data from previous experiments. "Remember those unexplained readings from the meditation studies? The anomalies during mass sporting events when crowds act in perfect synchronization. We're naturally attuned to this force. We just never realized what we were seeing." The implications hit Marcus like a physical blow. "You think this is why they want to quarantine us? I think this is why they're terrified of us." Amanda's voice trembled with excitement. "The assembly's technology lets them manipulate this force artificially. But humans, we're naturally connected to it. We don't need technology to interface with it. We just never knew we could." She pulled up news footage from the announcement day. "Look at the temperature drops that occurred during their broadcast. That wasn't them showing off. Those were human minds collectively reacting to their presence, causing measurable physical effects without any technology." Marcus sank into a chair. "If you're right, then humanity isn't just some unpredictable species that needs to be contained." Amanda's eyes gleamed with revelation. "We're the first race they've encountered that could eventually master this force naturally. No wonder their containment protocol was so urgent." She turned to her assistant. "Marcus, we need to get this data to someone who can act on it. The military, the government, someone who..." The laboratory lights suddenly flickered. Every screen went dark except for a single message: "Unauthorized quantum research detected. Containment protocols initiated." Amanda's hands flew across her controls. "They're monitoring us. Quick, help me transfer the data to quantum encrypted storage." As Marcus rushed to help, a new message appeared. "Final warning. Cease investigation." Amanda's fingers never stopped moving. They can't stop the transfer without revealing more of their capabilities, and every bit of energy they use to interfere just proves my theory correct. The data transfer reached 100%, just as every piece of equipment in the laboratory shut down. In the sudden darkness, Amanda clutched the encrypted drive containing humanity's greatest discovery, and possibly its only hope for survival. "They didn't want us looking too closely at their technology," she whispered in the darkness. because the moment we did, we'd realize that humanity's greatest weakness might actually be our greatest strength. The Cheyenne Mountain Complex hadn't seen this much activity since World War III. Commander James Rodriguez strode through reinforced corridors, his footsteps echoing against steel walls as he approached the newly designated Quantum Research Wing. 2 weeks had passed since the Assembly's ultimatum, and the underground facility had transformed from a military command center into humanity's last hope. "Dr. Sullivan's team is ready for you, sir," his aide reported, matching his brisk pace. "They've identified 3 more candidates showing unusual mental signatures." Rodriguez nodded, his expression grim. When Dr. Sullivan had first approached him with her discoveries, he'd been skeptical. But after witnessing a 19-year-old musician accidentally shatter bulletproof glass with a focused thought, his skepticism had vanished. The blast doors opened to reveal a chamber filled with sophisticated monitoring equipment. Dr. Sullivan stood at the center, surrounded by holographic displays showing brain wave patterns of various test subjects. "Commander," she greeted him, dark circles under her eyes betraying her exhaustion. "You need to see this." She gestured to a live feed showing a meditation session in progress. These people have never met, yet their mental patterns are synchronizing naturally. The feed showed 6 individuals from different backgrounds: a school teacher, a mechanic, a college student, a retired sailor, and 2 office workers. As they meditated together, the energy readings from their brains pulsed in perfect harmony. "It's like they're forming a psychic network," Rodriguez asked, studying the patterns. "More than that," Amanda replied, adjusting the display. "They're amplifying each other. The combined energy output is exponentially higher than what they produce individually. And look at this." She switched to thermal imaging. The air temperature around the group had dropped by several degrees, just like during the Assembly's appearance. "How many potential candidates have we identified?" Rodriguez moved to a global map dotted with glowing points. "Over 3,000 so far, scattered across every continent. People with natural ability to tap into this force. But here's the fascinating part. When we place them near others with the same capability, they all get stronger. It's like their presence awakens something in each other." A young researcher burst into the room, tablet in hand. "Dr. Sullivan. The London group just achieved stable telekinetic contact." Amanda's eyes lit up. "How long did they maintain it?" 17 seconds. They moved a 1-pound weight 3 feet without any physical contact. And their energy signatures matched the Assembly's broadcast patterns exactly. Rodriguez leaned against a console, processing the implications. "So we're not just detecting this ability, we're learning to use it. And faster than I'd hoped," Amanda added. "These abilities seem to be contagious in a way. Once someone learns to access this force consciously, they unconsciously help others around them tune into it. It's spreading like humanity's immune response to their threats," Rodriguez finished. "How long until the Assembly detects what we're doing?" "They'd probably already have." Amanda brought up a new display showing orbital data. "Their monitoring satellites have been paying special attention to areas where we're conducting tests. But they can't pinpoint exactly what we're doing because these abilities manifest like natural phenomena. To their sensors, it looks like random energy fluctuations." Rodriguez straightened his uniform. "Then we need to accelerate the program. I'll authorize the expansion of Project Awakening to all secure facilities worldwide. We'll disguise it as emergency civil defense preparations." "There's something else." Amanda lowered her voice. "During this morning's session, one of our subjects reported a vision. She saw the Assembly ships, but not as we see them. She saw them as vast networks of this same mental energy we're learning to harness. Their technology, their weapons, their very existence. It's all built on the same force we're naturally beginning to access. Which means their greatest advantage might actually be their greatest weakness. They've grown dependent on machines to channel this power. But we're learning to use it naturally, organically, in ways their rigid systems might not be able to counter." Rodriguez checked his watch. 13 days until they return. Will we be ready? Amanda looked at the meditation chamber, where the test subjects were now levitating small objects without any physical contact. We don't have a choice. Humanity's survival depends on mastering in days what they've taken millennia to achieve through technology. Outside the room, unknown to either of them, one of the maintenance workers closed his eyes and focused. Thousands of miles above, an assembly monitoring satellite registered another random energy fluctuation, adding it to an increasingly concerning pattern that would soon demand their attention. The attack came without warning. At 3:47 a.m. Eastern Time, New York's night sky erupted with blinding light. The assembly ships, massive crystalline structures that dwarfed aircraft carriers, materialized above Manhattan. Their hulls pulsed with swirling energy that seemed to drain the color from the world below. In the Cheyenne Mountain Complex's command center, alarms blared as similar ships appeared over Shanghai, London, and Cairo. Commander Rodriguez watched the tactical displays with growing horror. "They're early," he muttered, hands gripping the command rail. We still had 8 days until their deadline. Dr. Sullivan burst into the room, her lab coat billowing behind her. Their energy signatures just went off the charts. They're not here to talk this time. The first blast hit New York like a hammer from God. A column of pure energy, bright enough to turn night into day, lanced down from the lid ship. Where it struck, matter simply ceased to exist. A perfect circle of Manhattan, half a mile wide, vanished into nothingness. "Shanghai's gone dark," an officer reported, voice cracking. "Cairo's under attack. London's. Get me a link to all awakening sites," Rodriguez commanded. Now, around the world, the assembly ships continued their assault. Their weapons didn't explode or burn. They erased. Block by block, city by city, they began methodically removing humanity's greatest population centers from existence. But in the Cheyenne Mountain Complex, something extraordinary was happening. The 3,000 individuals identified by Project Awakening were connecting, their minds linking across continents in desperate synchronization. Dr. Sullivan stood at the center of the facility's meditation chamber, surrounded by 20 of their strongest psychics. "Commander," she called through the intercom, "we're about to try something that's either going to save us or kill us all." Rodriguez looked at the tactical displays showing more assembly ships appearing by the second. "We're dead anyway if we do nothing. Do it." In the meditation chamber, Amanda closed her eyes. The 20 people around her did the same. Through their newly forged mental network, they reached out to thousands of others in hidden facilities worldwide. Like neurons firing in a vast planetary brain, they connected. The assembly's next strike targeted the mountain itself. The energy beam lanced down, powerful enough to vaporize the entire complex, but it never reached its target. A dome of shimmering force materialized above the mountain, deflecting the blast. The shield wasn't technological. It was pure mental energy, generated by thousands of linked human minds. Where the assembly's beam met this humanitarian defense, reality itself seemed to shudder. Impossible. The assembly's collective consciousness broadcast, their surprise evident even in telepathic communication. Their species cannot possess such capabilities yet. In the command center, Rodriguez watched in awe as similar shields began appearing over other awakening sites. The assembly's weapons, unstoppable moments ago, now splashed harmlessly against barriers made of pure human will. Dr. Sullivan's voice came through the intercom, strained but triumphant. Their weapons work by forcing conscious energy into matter, breaking down its fundamental structure. But we can counter it because we're generating the same force naturally. The student has become the teacher. The assembly ships hung motionless, their attack momentarily halted by this unexpected resistance. Then, as if reaching a collective decision, they intensified their assault. More ships appeared, concentrating their fire on the shields. "We can't hold this forever," Amanda warned, sweat dripping down her face as she maintained the connection. "But we don't have to. Look at their ships." The massive vessels had begun to flicker, their crystalline structures showing signs of stress. By copying their energy perfectly, humanity wasn't just blocking their attacks, they were disrupting the very technology that kept the assembly ships intact. They built their entire civilization on controlling this force through machines, Amanda explained between labored breaths. They never imagined facing beings who could wield it naturally. Every attack they launched teaches us more about how their technology works. As if to prove her point, one of the smaller assembly ships suddenly shattered, its crystalline structure failing as human consciousness interfered with its control systems. The remaining ships immediately withdrew to a higher orbit, their retreat marking humanity's first victory against the cosmic powers. In the ruined cities across Earth, survivors emerged to see the impossible, ordinary humans standing together, their combined will literally holding the heavens at bay. The assembly had meant to demonstrate their superiority. Instead, they had awakened humanity's true potential. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, the meditation chamber had transformed. Gone were the sterile white walls and clinical atmosphere. The room now pulsed with soft blue light emanating from the 27 people seated in a perfect circle. At the center, Dr. Amanda Sullivan floated 3 feet off the ground, her eyes closed in deep concentration. Emotional resonance is the key, she spoke, her voice carrying to all Project Awakening sites worldwide through their mental network. The assembly uses machines to generate this power. We generate it naturally through our strongest feelings: courage, determination, hope. Commander Rodriguez watched from the observation deck as streams of energy flowed between the participants. The room's temperature fluctuated wildly as they practiced manipulating matter with thought alone. "Show me today's numbers," he ordered his aide. "We've identified 50,000 new potential awakened individuals in the last 24 hours, sir. The ability is spreading exponentially. It's like humanity's collective consciousness is remembering something it always knew but had forgotten." Below, Marcus Webb, now leading his own training group, demonstrated the latest breakthrough. He held up a shattered piece of concrete from New York's Ground Zero. Under his focused concentration, the material began to reconstruct itself. Atomic bonds were forming through pure mental command. The assembly's weapons didn't destroy matter, Amanda explained, still floating. They displaced it into another dimensional state. We can learn to reverse the process. To demonstrate, she gestured at a pile of ash from Shanghai. The particles rose, swirling in complex patterns as they reassembled into their original form. A child's teddy bear, completely restored. In another corner of the chamber, a group of teenagers who had shown exceptional aptitude worked on long-distance communication. Their minds linked across continents, sharing thoughts and images with other facilities without any technology. One girl, Sarah Martinez, suddenly gasped. "I can see them," she announced, her voice trembling. "The assembly ships. They're not just machines. They're like giant crystalline thoughts given form. Each one is a physical manifestation of their collective consciousness." Amanda descended to the floor, her eyes opening. "That's why they fear us. Their entire civilization is built on externalized consciousness, turning thought into crystal and energy. But we can do it naturally without technology. Every human has this potential. We just need to wake it up." The mountain itself seemed to vibrate as the training intensified. In the medical wing, doctors with newly awakened abilities were discovering they could heal with thought alone, accelerating the body's natural recovery processes. In the research section, physicists found they could perceive quantum states directly, understanding the universe's fundamental forces through pure intuition. "Commander," a lieutenant called out, "you need to see this." He pulled up satellite imagery showing strange phenomena worldwide. The northern lights had spread to the equator. Geometric patterns appeared in clouds over major cities. The Earth's magnetic field was shifting in response to humanity's growing psychic presence. "The assembly's monitoring stations are going crazy," Rodriguez noted, studying the data. "They can't distinguish between their technology and our natural abilities anymore. We're generating the same kind of energy they use, but in ways their sensors can't properly categorize. In the chamber below, Amanda addressed the gathering. What we're doing isn't just about defense anymore. We're evolving. Every human who awakens makes it easier for others to follow. It's spreading like ripples in humanity's collective consciousness. A sudden tremor shook the facility. On the monitors, the assembly ships had begun moving, adjusting their formation above Earth. Their crystalline structures rippled with uncertain patterns, as if reflecting their maker's agitation. "They're realizing their mistake," Amanda said, her voice carrying a mix of determination and sadness. "They thought they could contain us until they found a permanent solution. Instead, their very presence is accelerating our awakening. Their energy signatures are like a key, unlocking abilities that have laid dormant in our species for millennia." Marcus stepped forward, the restored concrete now floating above his palm. "How many more can we awaken before they make their next move?" Amanda turned to face the observation window, her eyes meeting Rodriguez's gaze. "All of us," she said simply. "Every human being has this potential. And now that we understand it." She left the thought unfinished as another wave of power rippled through the chamber. Above them, the assembly ships continued their ominous dance, preparing for what everyone knew would be their final attempt to contain humanity's explosive evolution. The assembly's ultimatum echoed through every mind on Earth: surrender now or face extinction. Their vast fleet had grown to over 1,000 ships, forming a crystalline web around the planet that glittered like a cage of diamond and starlight. In the Cheyenne Mountain Command Center, Commander Rodriguez watched the global feed. The assembly had expected panic, chaos, perhaps even civil war as humanity faced its final hours. Instead, they witnessed something unprecedented. "Dr. Sullivan," he called through the intercom, "are you seeing this?" Amanda stood in the meditation chamber, tears streaming down her face as she monitored the collective consciousness. "They're all connecting, Commander. Not just our trained psychics. Everyone. It's like a dam breaking in the human mind." Around the world, ordinary people began experiencing the awakening. A mother in Brazil suddenly felt her children's thoughts. A farmer in Kenya perceived the living energy of his crops. Students in Tokyo found themselves linking minds with classmates. The power that Project Awakening had carefully cultivated was now spreading like wildfire through humanity's collective consciousness. 7 billion minds, Marcus whispered, monitoring the energy readings. "They're all starting to synchronize." The assembly ships registered the phenomenon, their crystalline surfaces rippling with alarmed patterns. The energy signature they detected was identical to their own technology, but its scale was incomprehensible. An entire planet's worth of consciousness was reaching out into the cosmic force they had thought was theirs alone. In Times Square, where the assembly had delivered their first ultimatum, reporter Rachel Martinez stood among thousands of linked minds. The crowd moved in perfect unison, their combined will manifesting as a brilliant aurora that danced between the skyscrapers. Her earlier notes about the assembly's fear now made perfect sense. Humanity wasn't just accessing this power, they were transforming it. The temperatures dropping worldwide. An officer reported in Cheyenne Mountain. -10 degrees, -20. They're all tapping into the same energy the assembly uses. Amanda's voice carried both wonder and worry. Nobody's controlling this. It's a spontaneous awakening. Humanity's collective consciousness is responding to the threat by evolving. Above Moscow, an assembly ship attempted to fire its displacement beam. The weapon's energy dispersed harmlessly, scattered by millions of linked human minds. Over the Pacific, another ship found its crystalline structure resonating dangerously as humanity's unified thoughts interfered with its control systems. They built their entire civilization on controlling and containing this force, Amanda explained. Her consciousness spread across the global network. But we're showing them something they've never seen, the power of letting it flow naturally through living minds. The assembly's collective voice boomed across the planet. This development was not predicted. You must cease this unauthorized manipulation of cosmic forces. Humanity's response came not in words, but in action. From pole to pole, city to country, mountain to shore, human consciousness rose in a unified surge of defiance. The Northern Lights exploded into being worldwide, the visual manifestation of humanity's awakened power. The assembly ships found themselves engulfed in an ocean of human thought more powerful than their ancient technology. In orbit, their fleet began to retreat, moving back from the overwhelming wave of conscious energy radiating from Earth. Their crystalline vessels, designed to channel and control this force, couldn't handle its raw, organic expression through billions of synchronized human minds. "They're pulling back," Rodriguez announced, watching the tactical display. "Their fleet is withdrawing to lunar orbit." Amanda nodded, still connected to the global consciousness. "Because they finally understand. They spent millennia learning to cage this power in crystal and technology. We've shown them what it looks like when it flows freely through living minds." As the assembly's ships retreated, humanity's collective consciousness reached even further. Every human on Earth could feel it. The beginning of something greater than individual nations or even species. They had discovered not just a new power, but a new way of existing. "They wanted us to choose between submission and extinction," Amanda said, her voice carrying to all of humanity through their shared connection. "Instead, we've chosen something they never imagined possible. Evolution beyond their understanding of consciousness itself." Above them, the assembly's fleet hung in disarray, their perfectly ordered civilization confronting a force that defied all their ancient calculations, the raw, uncontained power of human unity. Light bloomed between Earth and Moon, a brilliant cascade of crystalline ships emerging from hyperspace. The assembly had called in their entire regional fleet, over 10,000 vessels forming a vast geometric pattern that turned near-Earth space into a lattice of living crystal and contained power. Dr. Amanda Sullivan stood in the heart of Cheyenne Mountain, no longer needing the meditation chamber. Every human on Earth had become part of humanity's shared consciousness, their minds linked in a vast network that made physical communication obsolete. "They're preparing for something big," Commander Rodriguez observed, his thoughts flowing directly into the collective awareness. "That's their entire defensive fleet for this sector of the galaxy." The assembly's message resonated through space itself. "Your species has violated the fundamental laws of cosmic development. Natural beings cannot be allowed to wield consciousness as a force. Order must be maintained." Amanda reached out through the human network, touching the minds of children in Kenya, farmers in China, teachers in Brazil, all now awakened to their true potential. "We don't wield consciousness as a force," she responded, humanity's unified voice carrying their message. "We are consciousness expressing itself as force." The assembly's ships began to move, their crystalline forms shifting into attack formation. Energy built within their fleet, enough power to reshape planets. This would be their final solution to the human problem. But humanity wasn't waiting for their attack. Around the globe, people joined their consciousness in ways the assembly had never imagined possible. Parents connected with children, friends with friends, strangers with strangers. All barriers of language and culture dissolved in the light of shared awareness. The first assembly wave struck like a tsunami of pure thought, their technology attempting to rewrite the quantum structure of Earth's atmosphere. They expected resistance, shields like those humanity had created before. Instead, their energy passed through Earth harmlessly, absorbed and redirected by billions of human minds working in perfect harmony. Every person on the planet had become a living conductor of the cosmic force, transforming the assembly's attack into pure creative potential. Impossible, the assembly's consciousness resonated with genuine fear. This defies all known laws of power management. In response, humanity demonstrated exactly what made them different. Around the world, the damage from previous attacks began to heal. Cities reconstructed themselves as millions of minds focused on restoration rather than destruction. The lost souls from New York, Shanghai, and other strike zones were honored as humanity's shared grief transformed into determined renewal. Amanda guided this process, Her consciousness expanded through the human network. "You built machines to control this power," she broadcast to the assembly. "We've become living channels for it. The difference is, we don't try to contain it. We let it flow freely through us, growing stronger with each mind it touches." The assembly launched their second wave, their ships creating a geometric pattern designed to suppress consciousness itself. But as their energy reached Earth, something extraordinary happened. Rather than fighting the suppression field, humanity embraced it, their unified consciousness flowing through the assembly's own network like water through cracks in ice. Crystalline ships began to resonate, their rigid structures struggling to contain the organic flow of human thought. The assembly had created perfect machines to channel and control cosmic forces. They had never prepared for those forces to channel back through their own systems, powered by living minds rather than crystalline matrices. "You fear us because we represent everything you abandoned," Amanda projected, humanity's understanding now reaching into the assembly's own consciousness. "You chose perfect control. We choose perfect freedom." The assembly's formation began to break apart as their ships struggled to maintain cohesion. Their technology, designed to cage and direct cosmic forces, couldn't handle the raw power of billions of human minds flowing through their network. Rodriguez watched in awe as the assembly's mighty fleet started to withdraw, their perfect geometric patterns dissolving into chaos. "They're retreating." "No," Amanda corrected, a slight smile on her face. "They're learning. For the first time in their history, the assembly is experiencing consciousness as we do. Not as a force to be controlled, but as a river to be joined." Above Earth, the greatest fleet in the galaxy hung in disarray, their ancient certainties crumbling before the power of humanity's unified spirit. The cosmic powers had come to judge humanity's worthiness, only to find themselves being transformed by the very species they had sought to contain. Sunrise painted the Rocky Mountains in shades of gold as Dr. Amanda Sullivan stood at the entrance of Cheyenne Mountain Complex. 3 months had passed since the assembly's retreat, and Earth had changed in ways no one could have predicted. The devastation from the attacks had been completely reversed. Cities rose renewed from their ashes, rebuilt not by machines or labor, but by the unified will of human consciousness. New York's skyline now sparkled with structures that seemed to dance with thought itself, their materials responsive to the collective minds of their inhabitants. "The first delegation arrives today," Commander Rodriguez said, joining her on the observation deck. Like everyone else, he could have shared the thought directly, but some habits died hard. "Are we ready for this?" Amanda watched as the morning light caught the crystalline spires of the new Consciousness Academy, built where the old military base had stood. "They're as nervous as we are," she replied. The assemblies never had to negotiate as equals before. High above, a single assembly ship descended through the atmosphere. Unlike their previous rigid geometric forms, this vessel flowed like liquid crystal, adapting and responding to Earth's consciousness field. They had learned, just as humanity had. The ship landed in the vast plaza before the academy, its crystalline surface rippling with patterns that reflected the thoughts of those around it. As its hull dissolved, 3 assembly representatives emerged, beings of pure energy and crystal who had chosen to experience consciousness as humanity did. "Welcome to Earth," Amanda projected, her thoughts carrying warmth and acceptance. The global consciousness network hummed with curiosity and cautious optimism as billions of humans watched through their shared awareness. The assembly delegates responded not with words, but with pure thought. "We come seeking understanding. Our civilization spent millennia perfecting the containment and control of cosmic forces. In 3 months, your species has shown us what we forgot: the true nature of consciousness itself." Around the world, humans and assembly members began their first true exchange. In rebuilt Shanghai, crystal beings learned about human emotion by sharing consciousness with children at play. In the Amazon, assembly scientists marveled as indigenous elders showed them how to perceive the living thoughts of the forest itself. In orbit, their ships danced with the aurora created by Earth's awakened consciousness. "The quarantine is formally lifted," the lead delegate announced. "Earth is recognized not as a threat to cosmic order, but as its next evolution. The age of rigid control is ending. A new age of flowing consciousness begins." Marcus Webb, now leading his own team of consciousness researchers, approached with an excited thought. "The Assembly's database shows thousands of other species they've quarantined. They all have the same potential we do. And now they'll have the chance to develop it naturally," Rodriguez added, his military bearing softened by months of shared consciousness with billions. Amanda felt the ripple of joy spread through the human network as the news traveled. Humanity hadn't just won their freedom. They had transformed the very civilization that sought to contain them. The Assembly's perfect order was yielding to something more dynamic, more alive. In Times Square, where this journey began, reporter Rachel Martinez stood beneath floating crystals that pulsed with shared thoughts. Her original notes about the Assembly's fear seemed like artifacts from another age. The beings they once dreaded now floated among them, learning and teaching in equal measure. "We came to judge your species," the Assembly delegates shared. "Instead, you showed us what we had lost in our quest for perfect control. Each human mind contains infinity, not to be contained, but to be explored." Amanda looked out over the changed world. The old boundaries, nations, languages, even the barrier between thought and reality, had dissolved in the light of awakened consciousness. Humanity had not merely survived the Assembly's judgment. They had transcended it. "The day we defied the cosmic powers," she broadcast to the unified consciousness of Earth, "was the day we discovered our true nature. We are not meant to be contained or controlled. We are meant to flow, to grow, to connect." Above them, the crystal ships of the Assembly's fleet had begun to change, their rigid forms becoming more fluid, more alive. They were no longer a cage for cosmic forces, but a bridge between the old way and the new. As Earth's first sunrise, as a truly free world continued to paint the sky, humanity's consciousness reached out to the stars, ready to help awaken the entire galaxy to its true potential.